you don't have that responsibility to raise these kids, because in actuality, you guys are. Because dad's not home anymore, mom's working 2 or 3 jobs, and she just doesn't have the opportunity to truly raise these kids. So they're watching and listening to you guys and the gold chains and all that stuff. And so it's hard to try to influence this kid with 46 minutes in class, and then they go home and they listen to your album for the rest of the night. And it's hard to kind of battle that and get them to understand that, you know, once you get tats and grills and all that kind of stuff, sometimes it can hurt your future if you're not going to be a rapper or an athlete and that kind of deal. And so do you ever think there's a time when, I guess, you rappers will come together and give a positive message and get these kids going? Because you're watching these kids, you guys go do outreach programs and things like that, but it's kind of like you're spinning your wheels, because the same thing you're trying to battle against and saying, hey, don't do this, you're talking about in your album. So it's hard to say, because kids won't always listen to what you say, they will watch what you do. And so it's hard to kind of fight that battle. So do you find a time where you think rappers will become a positive message to where they're not just talking about the detriment and the bad things that happen to you in the album? You know what I mean? Like in your neighborhood.
Well, I think the problem is that, I think, you know, Wale said it earlier, is that, you know, we as artists, we're not obligated to do that. It's only if we personally feel the obligation to do that. You know, if you go to McDonald's and you know, the person behind the counter, they're not obligated to tell you how bad McDonald's is for you. Their only obligation at work is to sell you McDonald's. Now, me as a person, I personally know that there are other things going on. So when I'm not at work, I go out in the community and I try to do what I can to rectify that. But that being said, we go back to the point that if a child is at home listening to me at night, where's the parents? You know what I'm saying?
They're working though.
I understand that. I was a latchkey kid, my brother, and look where I'm at. I'm a professor, co-professor, excuse me, at Rice University, and I was raised on hip-hop. I was raised on Ice Cube and all of these things. I came home from school at 4 o'clock, my mother was gone. You know what I'm saying? I made some good decisions and I made some bad decisions. I listened to what some things my friends said, and then other decisions I thought about what my mother said, and I made those decisions. As a person in my community, I try to speak into people's lives. But you can't hold me or hip-hop accountable for the fact that a person hears what I said and chooses to do it, and specifically a child. Now, when I say that it's not my responsibility to raise your child, I meant that primarily. Now, does it take a village to raise a child? Yes, it does. But you got to stand up and point at all the things that are creating these circumstances. You got to point to the government just as much as the rapper. You know what I'm saying? And I think that it's not true that rappers don't get together and send messages about positivity. Rappers do it all the time. Nobody focuses on it. It's the problem, because, you know, if we make a statement about our political beliefs about what's going on in the community, well, Radio 1 may not be able to play that because we may be speaking from something that be viewed as a liberal point of view. And the people that own the radio stations are conservative. So they're not going to play those records, and vice versa. We fight daily, and I think most people don't know this. We fight daily to get certain things accepted by record labels and by radio stations. And it's not always sex or cursing content. We try to bring up, like, you know, Lupe said, there's certain people's names and things that he's trying to address, and even though they agree with him, they can't support him. Because the powers that be that own these outlets disagree with him. So then Lupe has to find other outlets to let the people know how he feels. And we do have these things. The internet has leveled the playing field. So we have people now like a Lupe who can release an album that doesn't have singles getting major radio play and still debut #1 in the country, selling over 200,000 copies in 1 week, because people that want to know will make a search. Hip-hop is not giving up on our children. Hip-hop is getting older, and we're having children, we're raising children. So we understand the stakes. And believe me, even though you're a rapper and you may have made it out of the hood, you get a nice house, issues are still there. The same issues that are affecting the inner city, whether people want to believe them or not, are affecting the suburbs as well. They're losing the grip on their children just like we are. And they're not listening to hip-hop primarily. So we've got to look at society as a whole and say, what are all the conditions that are coming together that are helping to take away the importance of morals and standards in our community and address them all. Now, we as hip-hop artists are willing to stand up and address it. But I don't see Hollywood, I don't see the liquor companies, I don't see tobacco companies, I don't see any of these people willing to stand up and talk about it. You know what I'm saying? At least we're willing to talk about it and have this conversation. And keep in mind, we're still young. Rap is the youngest musical art form out there. Rock, R&B, all these other forms have been out there with years to express themselves. And the same way that, you know, you may look at us and objectify us, well, they objectified jazz. They objectified R&B, blues artists, all these different people. But then when that entire scope of their lives and their careers were put into context and people really got to look at them, they realized that their good may have outweighed what we perceived as bad, and we acknowledge them as leaders and legends in our community. And so for me, I'll bite that bullet now today for those that don't understand, to get my, you know, and be appreciated maybe 10, 20 years down the line. It's okay if the teachers don't understand what we do right now. And we understand that, trust me, there's a rapper up here that wants a kid 12 years old to go out and commit a crime, smoke weed, drink liquor, fight, none of that. But we all have to work towards it. And who's to say that your voice as a teacher is louder than mine as a rapper just because I'm on the radio? That's a big misconception, because you're telling me, here's what you're telling me. You're telling me that you can sit in the classroom for 7 hours and talk to your child, and that a 3-minute song can erase that. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I believe that before that child got in your classroom, there was an issue. Okay, well, let's speak to those issues, and then once we get rid of these issues, then we can talk about rap. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, rap is not here saying that we didn't do it. Rap is saying we're not alone.
Let's keep it concise. I was principal for a day at a school, right? Now, but wait. Well, hold on, let me finish. It was the school I went to as a kid, right? It's on the west side of Chicago. Now keep in mind, you're a teacher, right? Kids come to your school to do what? Learn. The kids will come into this school to eat. To eat. Not to learn. To eat breakfast and lunch. The principal of this school was trying to institute, now this is me talking to the principal the other day. He's trying to institute a third meal. So he know when them kids go home, they ain't gonna have nothing to eat when they go home if they come to school to eat, right? I'm in the school, Lupe Fiasco, Chi-Town, this is in Chicago. None of the kids knew who I was. And I was on the radio every day. None of these kids knew who I was. And the problems that they had still existed. Right? So they didn't know who, that's very important for you to understand. The kids that I was principal for a day at didn't even know who I was. And the issues still existed. They weren't coming to school to learn. They were coming to school to eat. Right? So there's some very serious problems even within your school system itself, sir. Like the school system is very much to blame. You know, the education the way you were taught how to teach kids and the systems that you came up under are very archaic and ancient, 60, 70 years past their time. Right? So you should go into school and take all those antiquated textbooks and those meaningless tests. Meaningless tests. Say that viscerally. Meaningless tests. Right? That you sit over and watch these kids take. You know that they're not going to use 95% of that information at all. Right? You know that. But parent-teacher conference, you need to come and talk to Jerome because he's being such and such. Or you need to do this, or you're going to give you an F for that. Throw away all them books. I challenge you. Throw away all them books. Throw away all of them. All the tests, everything. Right? And teach them kids something meaningful. Teach them how to grow a plant. Right? Teach them how to grow a ground. Teach them something meaningful. Right? In their lives that they can do it themselves. As opposed to just going in there and teaching them this English, which they ain't never going to use. Or teaching them this math that they're never going to use. Or teaching them this history that's backwards that they're never going to use. Right? So that's all. We equal now. You just as guilty. You just as guilty as Lil Wayne. Miseducation is miseducation, no matter how you put it, whether it's coming through a radio station or it's coming out of a book or a teacher. Right? Miseducation is miseducation no matter who's saying it. Just because I can make it rhyme, right? And you can't, that don't make you better than me, Penny.